Right. A very good evening to each one of us, ladies and gentlemen. This is a quick mic test 1 2, a quick mic test 1 2. Even as I welcome each and every one of us aboard. Right. Now this is Fred speaking to us, and I am glad that today we are having yet again another live. As we get to start, please go ahead and like this video, share it with your friends who are also learning German, even as we continue to put in the practice. Remember, as I like to say, it's all about practice, right? Practice which makes you perfect, right? I like so much about practice because you realize the more you keep in the practice is the more that you're going to become the very best, right? So for those who don't know me, yet again, this is Fred speaking to us. And in today's video, I want us to focus on some topic which is going to be essential also for the whether it's Schreiben examination, Sprechen examination, and this will apply whether it's A1, A2, B1, B2, etc. Because you realize you're going to use these rules, whether it's in, as you mentioned, Sprechen and so on and so forth, right? And the topic is going to be on the comparison. How do we compare adjectives in the positive form, the comparative form, and even the superlative form, right? We want to see what are some of the rules that one can apply when comparing these adjectives in the comparative and even the superlative, right? Now, you realize that some of the rules we're about to see in German, some of them tend to be like in English, right? So that you realize in English, normally the comparative form is the ending er, right? And then in English, normally in the superlative, we have est. Now, some of these rules are going to be the same, like in English, right? But before we get deeper into that, let's give some examples of adjectives right here, and then we'll see how they change in the comparative and the superlative, right? So the first example that I have is, let's use jung. Normally, the adjectives, when you write them, you have to put them in a small letter, right? Jung, which means young, small j, jung, this means young. And then I have some other example. Let's also use reich. Now, reich is rich, just put the meanings in bracket. So there is jung, which is young. There is reich. Now, reich means rich, okay? And then some other example that I have is, let's use schon. Would give some example. We'll give today 6 examples. There is schon, okay? Do you know any other examples of adjectives? Feel free to also comment below. So there is jung, young. There is reich, which is rich. There is schon, okay? Which other example? Let's use neu. There is also neu. Remember these, that adjectives tend to begin in small letters unless, of course, they're beginning a sentence. All right? Always, when using these adjectives in a sentence, they must always begin in a small letter unless, of course, they begin a sentence. So, jung, reich, schon, neu. Okay. Any other adjective? Let's get some few more adjectives. Someone says, how about alt? Yes, there is also alt. Now, alt is old, alt. And then which other one? We could also use hübsch. There's this one here also, hübsch, etc. So these are some examples of adjectives. Remember that normally adjectives are those words which you use to describe nouns. So how do we form the comparative then in German? How do we proceed to form the comparative? You're going to realize that in German, when forming the comparative form, it tends to take the ending er. Kindly note, you're going to realize that when forming these comparative forms in German, they tend to have the ending er, almost like in English. And then there's also another exception. There are those nouns which will acquire umlaut. All right, there are those which acquire umlaut, and then of course there are those which will not acquire umlauts, right? So the ones that acquire umlauts are the how do you call them? The one syllable nouns. I can see Bianca's tried one. Bianca says junga. That is correct. But now you put an umlaut here. So the jung, now when it comes in this other side, you're now going to have an umlaut like that and an ending er. So you have junga. Look at that. Jung now becomes junga with an umlaut. So you can see jung has no umlaut here, but here now there's an umlaut. Junga, right? Now reich, this one remains without umlaut. You can see umlaut only applies on a or o, right? So reich now becomes reicher, all right? Reich. So you're seeing it's almost like in English. In the comparative that we have the ending er. I can see Bianca trying very well. That is nice. So jung, junger, reich, reicher. Schon, now when it comes in this other side, also you add the ending er. Now you say schöner. It maintains its umlaut, right? So you're saying you're just adding ending er. In a moment, we'll be seeing the exceptions. Those are the irregular ones, yeah? So jung, junger, reich, reicher, schon, schöner. Neu, which is new. Now neu, now you also just add er. Now you say neuer, newer, neu, neuer, right? Alt, now alt also is another one that will take an umlaut. You now have an umlaut on the a and ending er, so the pronunciation changes. Älter. Alt now becomes älter. Kindly note, yeah? Hübsch. Now this would maintain. You just add the ending er. Hübscher. Look at that. Hübscher. So you're seeing in the comparative, what you simply do is we majorly add the ending er, just like has been indicated right here, right? And how about the superlative? What do we now do for the superlative? Now for the superlative in German, we will first of all have am in front, and then at the end you will add sten to the adjective. Kindly note. So there is am, and then we add an sten to the adjective, right? So for example, there is jung, no umlaut, now becomes junger, and then in the superlative, how does it become? Now I would say am. Look at this. Be careful with the spelling. So here you say am jungsten with the umlaut. Kindly note the spelling. Jungsten. All right. Jung, junger, am jungsten. Right. Jung, no umlaut. Junger, umlaut. Am jungsten. Reich, reicher, richer, and then richest. Am reichsten. Reich, and then I add sten. Reich, reicher, am reichsten. How about schon, schöner, now becomes, kindly note the endings. So schon, schöner, am schönsten. Look at that. Schon, schöner, am schönsten. Ah yeah, there's neu, neuer, okay, neu, neuer, newer, and then newest. Am neuesten. Neu, neuer, am neuesten. How about alt? Now becomes älter, older, right? And then the superlative, am, it maintains the umlaut, ältesten. Ältesten. Alt, älter, am ältesten. All right? Hübsch, hübscher, and then am hübschesten. Now there are those which now add an additional esten. Hübschesten. Hübschesten. All right. So you've seen the pattern, right? Comparative, majorly ER. Jung, Jung, reich, reicher, schon, schon, right? And then the superlative, there's first of all am, and then there's 10. Jung, junger, am jüngsten. Reich, reicher, am reichsten. Schon, schoner, am schönsten. It is in that particular manner. Okay, let's pick some examples now of the irregular ones, because these ones apply for regular ones, right? Now, I would like us to go ahead and pick some examples now of the irregular ones. All right. Now, as you continue to, I believe you're copying them down. I would recommend you copy them down, because I know once you begin Sprechen, you'll be majorly required to use them in Sprechen or even Schreiben. Yeah. Feel free to also comment below. Which level are you currently in? A1, A2, B1, B2? Feel free to also comment below. So I want us now to pick some examples of the irregular ones, and I will pick 3 of them. In the first example of the irregular one is feel. Now, feel normally means a lot, right? Feel. Now, for feel, it behaves differently, because feel in the comparative, it changes, becomes mehr. Look at that. Viel mehr Islam. Es geht mir gut und dir. So, feel now becomes mehr, very irregular, right? And then in the comparative, now becomes am meisten. This one is normally a very irregular one. Viel mehr am meisten. Now, for these rules, this one applies for regular ones, right? Nadia also tried and said am meisten. That is correct. I just removed the N. Okay, let's take another example, which is also irregular. Another one that is also very irregular is teuer. Now, here you have to be careful with the spelling of the E-U-E-R. Teuer. Teuer normally is T-E-U-E-R. Who wants to try this? Teuer in the comparative. Teuer, very irregular also. Now, teuer, you can see originally is T-E-U-E-R, right? Now, when I change it in the comparative, there is an E that is going to be lost and an additional ER. So now it changes, becomes, look at this, toy. Now the middle E is lost, right? Now you have teurer. Look at that. Teuer, teurer, right? Teuer, teurer. And then am teuersten. Teuer, teurer, am teuersten. Right? These ones are very irregular. Okay, I want to pick one last one that is also very irregular, and then I'll be taking some additional ones from you that you've always had a challenge in, right? Let's see, is it gross? Yes, gross. Now, gross also behaves a bit irregularly. Originally, it has no umlaut. Gross, originally. There is no umlaut to it, right? Gross. So, gross in the comparative, it now acquires an umlaut on the O. Now becomes grosser. Gross now becomes grosser. Hi to you, Jamal. Willkommen, yeah? So gross now becomes grosser. And then in the superlative now becomes am größten. Look at that. Gross, grosser, am größten. Okay, so those are some few examples I picked for us. I would like to take some, okay, we can take some 2 more from us. Which adjective have you always had a challenge in comparing? Feel free to comment below. I'm going to pick some few from our comments, and then we would complete with those ones. Which ones have you specifically had a challenge in comparing? Remember, they will only fall in 2 categories. Either it's a regular one or it is an irregular one. It is here. So let's see the first one. Which one have you personally struggled with comparing? Let me pick the first one from us. Who has given us one? Okay, I saw one that was brought some times back. Was it spät? No, spät has not been given. Okay, let me use spät, right? Now, spät would become später, and then am spätesten. Später, right? Am spätesten. etc. Someone says, haben und sein, können Sie es mir erklären? Now, for haben and sein, now those ones are different. Those are verbs. Those ones we will see in the topic of tenses. There's a video I did on that. I would recommend to check it out. That is a different one on verbs. Yes, any other example? Now, I'd like you to give us any other example of an adjective. Remember, you simply take the adjective in the positive, comparative, you add er as indicated, and then the superlative, you do what? You have am, and there's 10. All right. Now, any other? Let's take the last one from us, the very last one. The very last one. Somebody gave me one also at the beginning. I have forgotten. Was it? Let me think of it. Was it? No, nicht. Nicht is not an adjective. Nicht is not. Another one. How about we use komisch? Yes, komisch. Now it will follow the same pattern. Komisch, and then er, komischer, right? And then am komischesten. Let's see that. Komisch. Ross, Ahab, hello to you too. Willkommen, yeah? So I'm referring to this one here. Komisch, right? Komisch. So komisch in the comparative, now it would become komischer, right? Komisch, you simply add the er, now becomes komischer, funnier, right? And then in the superlative, now becomes am komischesten. Komischesten. Look at that. Komisch, komischer, am komischesten. etc, right? So guys, I believe you've now seen on how you can compare the various adjectives, right? So if that has been well understood and there is no other example, I'm trying to think of these long ones. How about sympathetic, sympathisch? Le Père des Filets, willkommen, yeah? There's this one that somebody has given me, sympathisch. This is a bit long. Sympathisch. Look at this. Sympathisch. Now, sympathisch simply means sympathetic or likable, right? So, sympathisch, in the comparative, now I add my er, I would now say sympathischer. Look at this. Sympathischer. Right? Sympathisch now becomes sympathischer. All right? And then in the superlative, now it becomes am sympathischesten. Sympathisch, and then I add the ESTN. Sympathisch, sympathischer, and then am sympathischesten. Right? You're seeing the same pattern, just like that one. Sympathisch, sympathischer, am sympathischesten. Yes, I'm still picking some examples from us. Islam, willkommen. Loper, willkommen. Ras, willkommen. Those of you who are just tuning in, let me say willkommen to each one of you. etc, etc. Yes, some additional adjectives. I'm still receiving adjectives from us. The ones you've especially had a challenge in comparing, feel free to bring them on board. Which other adjective have you had a challenge comparing personally, right? And as you also do that, feel free to share with us which level are you currently in. Are you in A1, A2, B1, B2, etc. Also feel free to share with us below. Right, we've used alt already. We've used neu. Okay, how about we use fresh? How do you say fresh? Now, fresh in German, which is frisch, right? Fresh. This is now going to be frisch. Look at this one. Frisch. Fresh. Now here again, you do the same thing. You just add the ending er in the comparative. Now becomes frischer. Frisch. Frischer. All right. And then freshest. Am frischesten. Am frischesten. etc, etc. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, that is basically how we get to compare adjectives in German, right? So, if that has been well understood, I would recommend go ahead and form as much other examples as possible. And then those of you who asked about the full video courses, I've put the link in the comment section. At the end of this class, you'll be able to check the full purchasable video courses, whereby we now detail more also on the same. All right. So with that said and done, this brings us to the end of today's class. Das ist alles für heute. Tschüss, and I'll be seeing you in the next one. Tschüss, tschüss.